guys. Yeah, I'm announcing that I'm live now, so I'm going to give it about 2 minutes for the room to fill up. All right, guys. Today I'm going to be discussing solutions. I noticed that everyone, including myself, has been spending a lot of time debunking, disproving, debunking, realigning, recalibrating, waking people back up, reminding them of who they are, reminding them of their power. And while all that is fine and dandy, and there's most definitely a place for that, I think now we're inching into a time where we need to discuss solutions. A lot of people think that they have solutions, but you can't pull a solution from a byproduct. You have to pull the solution from the root of the problem. So I spent some time writing things out that I'm going to discuss with you guys. And then we'll be having some things that are more tangible for you guys to access and utilize and implement into your lives so that things like what's happening in the world don't happen and you feel hopeless or lost or confused, right? Just give me one more moment. I want to announce this live on Facebook and we'll jump right in. This won't be a very long video. Just wanted to hash some things out. Share this. Subscribe if you haven't. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm still getting acclimated to this YouTube life. I'm usually on Instagram Live, so excuse my poor engagement skills on here. This is not my stomping ground. Where the video is the most significant. Alrighty. So I was taking some notes because I've been noticing that a lot of people love and almost prefer pacifying things instead of getting to the root of the problem, because we're not taught to get to the root of the problem. We quit halfway and we settle for symptomatic healing, whether that be with our physical bodies or with our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. We want quick fixes, we want instant gratification, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what we've settled for. So, excuse me, you guys. Okay, no more interruptions, right? Now, I've done my best to get to the root of this stuff. I'm using these bullet points as a reference point so that you guys know exactly what I'm talking about and don't squander around Yeah, some of this is going to be intuitive, but a lot of it, I'm going to use these notes as staple points so that I don't go too far off on any kind of tangents or anything. So I've noticed that everybody's problem goes back to sovereignty, authenticity, and identity, right? Now, many of you are probably hearing the word sovereignty a lot more these days, and that's because sovereignty is associated with your ability to govern yourself and be truly free. Authenticity, on the other hand, is governed by your ability to be your full and complete self, to embody your raw essence, all that you are. Not taking on what somebody told you you were, or not taking on what you feel like you're supposed to be, or trying to copy someone else, or trying to embody something that's inorganic or not authentic because you want some kind of tangible benefit, right? A lot of our society and our world is very inauthentic. And because of this lack of sovereignty and this lack of authenticity, we now have compromised our sense of identity. And our sense of identity is governed not by our skin color, but who we are in the unseen realm. We have eternal life, and we know this in theory, but we don't know it in reality. We think that, and we behave like this life is all that we have. This physicality is the last of it. Live life like it's your last, YOLO, da 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 da. We treat this life like it's the only thing that we have. And because of that, we've compromised our sovereignty, we've compromised our authenticity, and we have an eternal life. So we behave like this dense, third dimensional material reality is all that we have, when that couldn't be further from the truth. So again, our three issues are sovereignty, authenticity, and identity. So now we're going to get into the conversation of community revival. And me and my partner, as you guys may or may not know, are working on community revival, putting the power back into the people so that they can be sovereign, self-sustained, self-governing, anonymous, et cetera, right? But I've noticed that even though people like the idea of this, even though the idea of this is very, 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 oh my God, I would love to be a part of that. There's a few things that I found just through trial and error with trying to build with others in this arena that stops them dead in their tracks. One of those things is safety and survival, or safety and security, disease, sickness, ailments, pain, fulfillment and contentment, having a sense of self or inner identity. And note that I said inner identity because a lot of us too heavily identify with what our skin color looks like, or what we culturally have been taught is conducive to our skin color. Some of us venture out, might be white and be a part of Black culture, might be Black, be a part of white culture, whatever. But that just goes to further reinforce that skin color means absolutely nothing, and that culture more so might have a heavier influence than race itself in terms of how the world goes and the directions that things go in and how things pan out. Culture has way heavier of an influence than race. Another thing that I noticed stop people dead in their tracks is intelligence. And the last thing, obviously, is freedom. Now, I'm going to go through each of these points, and I'm going to break down why these have become problems for the community and how the community has been pulled further away from these types of liberties, if you will. And I'm speaking, I like the term nomenclature. I'm speaking from a purely spiritual nomenclature. I hope I'm using that contextually correct, but I like that term because it's a law term, if I'm not mistaken, and it basically explains how, you could be before a courtroom and Black to you is not the same thing as Black to a lawyer or to a judge, so whenever you're dealing with anything, even in the spiritual realm versus the material realm, I feel like there's some level of nomenclature that has to be honored so that all parties are on the same page. And as you can see, they use it in the world, in the material realm, third dimension, with courtrooms and jurisdictions and law and all those other kinds of things. And it's especially with unconscious people that don't have a sense of identity beyond what they've been taught that they are. Right. So we're going to start with safety and security, which I think is the biggest one. This is the thing that keeps people enslaved to their jobs. This is the thing that in survival mode. This is the thing that keeps people in poverty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is what makes people compromise their basic human dignity and integrity, safety and security. A lot of it from the outside looking in might just look like, oh, they're just being reckless, ignorant, and violent, and they have an issue. But if you look at their surroundings or their upbringing or their culture or whatever influences that they had once they incarnated, you'll find that on some level, safety and security, whether physical, emotional, or mental, was compromised, and inevitably so spiritually, right? Now, I'm finding that people that struggle with safety and security resist change, and they resist duality. And when you resist duality, you make life the antagonist. When you don't accept that good can't exist without bad, or left can't exist without right, when you can't accept that reality, that seemingly paradoxical reality, there's a lot of resistance and there's a lot of suffering. And then when suffering comes, that's what puts you into fight or flight mode, right? So the sooner that we accept change as the only constant that we have, we think that the government is constant, our checks are constant, our jobs are constant, our relationships are constant. No, change is literally, we have to learn to start living. Because everybody thinks, oh, living, oh, Nicole, you're living because you're in the tropics. Nicole, you living because you work for yourself. No, I'm living because I'm very highly acclimated to change, constant change. I don't resist it. Even if I try to resist it, suffering is almost immediate. And then I just relinquish all need or longing for control or lust for result, right? So denying change is in essence denying life, which is claiming death. And that's what a lot of us do every single day. We claim death. And I'm not talking about death in the spiritual context. I'm talking about death in the third dimensional context that we often refer to it as. When a loved one dies, oh, they're dead, we'll never see them again. Death. Kind of death is the kind of death that we bring upon ourselves every single time we deny change or newness or looking at life or people or situations with new eyes per every now moment. This is something that children do. Children don't lose this until we take it away from them. And when we take that away from them, we take life out of them. We suck life out of them because we've had the life sucked out of us. And that's all we know how to do. Now, in terms of duality, like I said, accepting that right and wrong is a complete whole thing. And there's not a polarized, right is here and wrong is there. And when we began to deny duality, there's duality all in nature, in the animal kingdom, inside of us. Life is about duality. So when we begin to deny that and we polarize it, we either sway all the way to the good or all the way to the bad. You have the nuns, you have the deviants or the killers or the this or the that. But at a root level, this has been caused by generations and generations and generations and incarnations of denying duality, right? So once we deny change and inevitably so deny life, we deny duality as well. And that puts us in a position to be subconsciously controlled, right? If you were to be capable to bend to change at every single now moment, every new moment that exists, if you went with that, you would still be a living being. And a lot of what you're suffering from wouldn't even be able to happen to you because you wouldn't be resisting change. The moment that something didn't feel right and things started changing inside of you, you would honor that. That's change. That's evolution. But our culture, our society is governed by denying change. So then once you start denying change, you start denying life. Once you start denying life, you start denying yourself. Once you deny yourself, you lose your identity. And then what happens when you lose your identity? Someone else can tell you who you are, right? So this is where we're at. We've denied change. We reject and polarize duality. When we do that, we deny ourselves, our core essence, our authenticity, our sovereignty as a birthright. And once we've done that, we've lost our innate ability to question everything. Kids question everything. And it's not until we tell them to shut up enough or be quiet enough or you're not going to get a sticker, dangle reward systems over their heads. They deny life. They deny life for a sticker. They deny life for a good grade. They deny themselves for validation. They deny breath for density. The very thing that made them light, made their hearts light as a feather, they're now heavy. And they now have to carry around this heaviness. Maybe even dump it on somebody else. And that's not how it should be. Because if they weren't resisting their innate inspiration to change, they would have never accumulated so much heaviness, so much denial, so much trauma. But I'm going to get into that because that goes into some of my later points. Once we lose our innate ability to question everything, we give away our lives, we give away our identities, and boom, now we've created space for someone or something else to come in and animate another expression of our says, oh, you don't know who you are? Well, I'm going to tell you because there's space for me to do that. Understand that we create space for these things to happen. They don't just come and get taken from us. Please, that's the first step of self-accountability. It didn't get taken from us. We created space for it to get taken from us. When you deny, and these are basic laws, universal laws. Some of this is even science. When you deny duality in life, when you deny change, when you deny your authentic raw essence, science and marketing and branding is just now catching up to the importance of these things. Now, after years of convincing us that this density was the only thing that was possible, and you know that's what life is. Now, because things are accelerating on the planet energetically, now it's like, oh shoot, maybe there is life beyond this shithole, right? So, science, marketing, the third dimension, everything that some of you have been studying in school, they're a little behind. Okay. Now, the next problem in the communities are diseases, diseases, right? That can be physical, that can be mental, that can be emotional. It can be all three. And inevitably so, just like the first point, that affects your spiritual health, your spiritual well-being, your spiritual sovereignty, right? So poor health is a product of poor eating, poor breathing, poor air quality, poor water quality, poor soil quality, which all make up our overall physical well-being because we are beings of nature, even if we don't remember. Same components, the same things that a tree can do to fight off a fungus, the human body does, right? And in addition to having low quality food, plants, soil, air, water, sun, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there's also energetic malpractice. And what even creates space for energetic malpractice is money, currency. Now, we don't know our doctors. We don't know who's all digging in our bodies and energy fields. We don't know them from Adam and Eve. We don't even get the chance to assess intuitively whether we want this person's fingers and bodies. We just pay them some money. They convince us that they know what they're doing. We don't have any sense of true intelligence, because if we did, we would have never signed a contract to go to a hospital. But that's one of my later points. So even beyond hospitals, when you go into a store and somebody sells you something that they're marketing to you because they just want you to buy it, they don't care if it's going to mess up your skin. They don't care about your actual biology and how that is different from every different kind of being, how some skin cream might be good for you and might be bad for another being. They don't care about that. There's no integrity. They just want to sell it to you, right? And you have no integrity because you raffled away your identity. So now you're just in a position to not only know who you are, but be told anything, be told who you are, and then inevitably so you're able to be sold anything. So this is another form of energetic malpractice. So you're paying your money because a marketer or a brander has now sold you a dream, which is another form of sorcery or spell work. Very slight, not as, crazy as some of the other versions or methods. But nonetheless, energetic malpractice. You buy a product, it may not work, but you were so sold on the marketing and the branding and what it did on your mind, what it played on in terms of colors and the sense of status that it might have given you, or the way it appealed to your emotions, or the way it appealed to your values. This is all marketing and branding. They manipulate you into believing that you need something that you really don't need, right? And even if you realize later that you don't need it, it's now a hunger that you have. It's an insatiable hunger that marketing and branding creates. And it's only there because we don't have any integrity as people, because we don't know what we are. We don't know who we are. And inevitably so don't know what we need. So anybody can sell us anything. So that's how disease is created, because now we're buying plants that we don't even know who grew them. We don't know what soil they use. We don't know what kind of use. We don't know the energy of the person that uprooted it from the ground. We don't know the energy of the people that package it. We don't even know how it was packaged. All we know is that when we walk into the grocery store, it's fresh on the shelf and it says lettuce, so it must be lettuce, right? And we just assume all of these things that is good for us because shit, my grandma got lettuce from the grocery store, so why can't I? But unbeknownst to us, grandma didn't know who the hell she was either. So that's disease. Not knowing who you are, and then if you don't know who you are, you know what's best for you. And then when you don't know what's best for you, you leave space for somebody to tell you what's best for you, right? The next point is fulfillment and contentment. Now, this is a big one because a lot of people are compromising what fulfills them and makes them content at a soul level for security, survival, money, validation, etc. Right? And the moment that you deny what you really, really love, and deny what you're passionate about, and deny what makes you the thing that you can do all night long and never get tired of it, you can fuck around and do it for free. That's your authentic self, and those are your passions. That's your purpose. That's the thing that makes you feel like you're worth something. And before community was torn, toxic shit that we're calling community, true community, before that was torn to shreds, right? What happened was, in village life, an herbalist who's passionate about herbs could give an oracle some herbs in exchange for maybe a reading, right? And the both of them love exactly what they do, and they're able to come to one another, connect authentically, not just have this money thing in front of them and just throw it all around and have no energetic integrity in the exchange, but actual true energetic reciprocation taking place. You ever been to a hospital and you left feeling almost worse than you came, or drained, or not even really healed, but some symptom has just been pacified? That's because there was no true reciprocation. You just paid somebody's mortgage and they just threw all kinds of foreign energy around all inside of you, and you don't know who you are, so you don't know who to believe, so you just accept it until maybe something profound happens and changes your outlook on life and existence, which is hopefully what this video will do. And this is where the school system and the corporations come in. So now we don't feel like our herbalism, our love for singing, our love for dancing, our love for sewing clothing, we don't feel like it's good enough because it can't compete with Gucci. It can't compete with Beyonce. It can't compete with Tiana Taylor in her dancing. So we measure our authentic passions, the things that fulfill us at a soul level that will open up the floodgates for abundance and fulfillment and opportunity that we think that money is going to give us, right? We close those doors unknowingly because we're trying to open up doors with money because we think that money is the thing that's going to buy us this fulfillment or these opportunities or whatever, right? When all money's really going to do is maybe feed an ego or something like that, some egoic sense of self, some egoic sense of success. And if you look at it, look at any dancer that's made it to be a background dancer for a celebrity. Their ego gets high for a quick second, and then they're left sitting there like, is this it? Like, I danced for this person. They paid me well. You're on this high, and then you drop because you're like, why am I really doing this? For an applause? For a check? And it stops feeling good after a while because you're not being reciprocated. It's not a reciprocal experience. Now, I'm not saying that all celebrities are like that. Some celebrities treat their background dancers very well. They take them out to experience things that they never experienced before. Yeah, check comes with it, but it's also a very emotionally and spiritually significant experience. I feel like it's a rare thing, but I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen. But that also all depends on the dancers or the singer's personal level of integrity, and that would influence what they attracted in terms of opportunities. But anyway, I'm not going to get too deep into that science. All I'm going to say is that we're no longer fulfilled at a soul level, and because of that, we're settling for making exchanges with people with money as the medium instead of integrity and genuine, authentic connection. You should be able to meet your herbalist and feel like the same way you meet a lover and you like, it got to be a connection there before I have sex with you. Why don't you connect with your surgeon like that? Why don't you connect with your dentist like that? Why don't you connect with your psychiatrist like that? Or the person that created this grocery store, why don't you know the owner? Why don't you get into the integrity of his practices and why he opened up the grocery store and what his integrity was like, what his underlying purpose was? Was it for profit or was it to help the community and give them quality products? Don't look into the marketing and branding. That's to manipulate you subconsciously. Look at the actual person. If you can't find the person, 9 times out of 10 is profit. If you can't source a company back to the person and have a genuine talk with them, You're too far away from connectivity, and that's a problem. And that's why we continue to compromise our fulfillment and our contentment, because we don't understand how important it is to do what fulfills you and trust that that's going to come with something that you need in return. So anyway, the next point is a sense of self and your inner identity. And this is a really important point because, like I said, when I started this live, there were three things that's a problem in our communities. It's sovereignty, authenticity, and identity. A lot of us feel like we're white people, we're black people, we're Asian people because of our skin color, something so insignificant, especially karmically and spiritually speaking. I mean, I've known people that have incarnated as white people and then reincarnated as black people and then incarnated as a white person again and incarnated as a cat. Like, life does not work like that, you know? Life incarnation cycles are not governed by fucking color. That's absurd. So because of that, we denounce our inner identity, which is our soul, our spirit, eternal life, the unseen aspects of what we are, our essence. We completely deny that. And guess what happens when we deny that? We forget about it over time of reincarnating, being trapped in time, falling asleep inside of time. And then somebody gets to tell us who we are. You're black. You're a minority. You're worthless. You're ugly. Hair's too thick, lips too big, whatever the hell y'all been told that y'all really buy into. And you've forgotten that you're in soul having a human experience. And a lot of you guys know this in theory. There are plenty of memes circulating this same exact quote, but hear me out. The whole idea of true sovereignty, in my opinion, is to break the reincarnation cycle. And a lot of people are really just trying to break out of their environments, break out of their suffering without understanding this truth. And it's not going to work that way. And you'll likely have to go through a whole bunch of other cycles of suffering and pain and poverty and whatever else until you arrive at the truth that I'm talking about right now. Not in theory, but in experience, right? So that's where we compromise our sense of identity. And when people get eye readings from me, what they're trying to do is tap back into their soul's identity, essence, not the name, the straw man identity, the person that your parents named you, not that person, not the person that's good at all these things. Oh, Nicole the seer, Nicole the marketer, Nicole the singer, Nicole the writer. No, the person that is there even when the flesh, the person that's there in inaction, when idle, in meditation. That stillness, that just simply being. When you look at a piece of grass that sways to the left in such an eloquent way, you just look at it like a strand of grass in the ground, right? That type of stillness is the source of our sense of identity. And the more that I'm not denying that you might have to go through some karmic things and peel back these layers and deal with these karmic residues that you have around race or culture or trauma or poverty, because you do have to work through those things. But until you work through those things, this truth probably won't resonate that deeply, only in theory and only intellectually, which is okay. There's no rush. This is just a placeholder that you can maybe refer back to once you do hit that point. Now, intelligence. This is a huge one as well. A lot of people are going to school for 10 years, 20 years, and they're learning how to sustain a system. They're not learning anything about true intelligence, because you can't be intelligent if you don't know who you are. You can't be intelligent if you don't know what you are. You can't be intelligent if you don't know intuitively what to eat or what to drink or what not to eat or what not to drink. That's not intelligence. That's programming. You're being programmed. So if you want to exist in a system that only accepts you if you accept their program, their curriculum, their prerequisites, yes, go to school, because that's what you want to do. But if you don't want to be a part of a system that doesn't serve your highest good, your highest identity, your highest truth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you should actually go after real intelligence, which is emotional intelligence, creative intelligence, and subconscious intelligence. Your creativity, our creativity. Look at the music industry. Why is this the most powerful industry? Because creative and emotional intelligence is very, very, very important. Knowing how to cultivate that and do it and turn it into art, to turn it into power, to use it for shadow work, to use it for transmutation. Walk into something feeling shitty and low and then just releasing your art. That's a form of shadow work. It allows you to manifest all these opportunities that weren't there otherwise. And this is probably the only birthright that we've really harnessed. And even then, we let people capitalize off it that don't give a fuck about us. So we harness it, but then we drop the ball. But if you had to reference anything that was reflective of truly harnessing your creative and subconscious and emotional intelligence into people that have that power and they capitalize off of it, they use it, they manipulate them, and they especially manipulate and feed off of and perpetuate things based on the survival mode and the security mode that these people are in, likely coming out of poverty or struggle or just not wanting to be in the same cycle that we're trying to break right now. And lastly, freedom. Freedom is probably the biggest one of them all, and these are all byproducts of, you know, having our freedom taken away because we gave it away. And this goes into having control over self-harvested resources like food, plants, water, shelter, and doing things like engaging in group economics and bartering and keeping everything in the community and putting the trust back into your community and your people, right? So those are the main problems that I notice in community. Now, what I'm going to do now is shift into what we have allowed to replace these things. And I'm going to go through them briefly again. Is safety and security, disease, fulfillment, inner identity or sense of self, intelligence, emotional and creative, and freedom, right? Then we have allowed money, the shifting of trust, programming, and density to take us out of this sovereign, authentic, empowered place where we know who we are, right? So I already kind of explained the money thing. Like when you go to a doctor, you don't know the doctor, you don't connect with the doctor, y'all don't sit and chit chat. Oh, where are you from? Well, where are you from? What do you believe in? What are your practices centered around? Do you have any integrity? Are you connected to yourself? Do you know who you are? Shit, because if you don't know who you are, how are you going to help me? You know? And that's on all levels, physical, spiritual, emotional, mental. Anybody that's claiming that they can help you or elevate you has to know who they are. And most doctors and lawyers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of these really backfill people, you know, matrix robots, whatever you want to call them for the time being, they don't know who they are. They're following a program because that program puts food on the table and sustains all that they know, which is the matrix, which is what they think is life when it's actually depleting life. As you can see, if you look in a highly populated city, there's no life there. There's functionality. So don't confuse living with functionality. They're very, 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 very different. Very different. A robot can function, but a robot isn't living. So I went into identity. I went into programming. Now, a big thing I want to talk about that a lot of people are missing in their solution-based theories is density. Now, density is what makes the material around what it is. Density is what makes this table, this pen, it's dense. You can see it drop onto the table. You can pick it up. I'm on camera. You can see it. I'm the one being taped. I can see it. I can see it. I can describe the feeling. This is dense, right? Not all things are dense. We're dense. We can be undense, you know, when we astral project or when we ascend or when we become light bodies or when we transition and change forms, whatever, we can become less dense or we can be not dense at all and be completely one with source, which is where all of this is headed, if you didn't know. But when a being becomes dense, now I'm not going to get hung up on details because I feel like we're going to get hung up on details for the next 5 years and we're going to blink and then you're going to be like, whoa, I should have left 5 years ago. So cut out the details and whatever resonates, let it resonate, and whatever doesn't, throw it out, because whatever resonates is something from your internal compass that's giving you a sign that you're onto something that's for you, right? What resonates for me may not resonate for you and vice versa. So don't get all hell-bent on arguing with people that you just don't resonate with. You guys are vibrating at two totally different frequencies. And to argue about that is ridiculous. It's karmic things, spiritual things that nobody wants to touch on that influences how dense we are, how light we are, how resonant somebody's message is or isn't. So please refrain from debating and putting people out. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I almost feel like it's more effective than the propaganda in the news, because people can argue for days, you know. Nobody knows who the hell they are, so they're all arguing to validate the little bit of something that gives them a sense of identity. They want to salvage that, so that's what everybody's online doing. So don't fall into it. If it resonates, listen. If it doesn't, cut it off and move on. But if you find yourself listening to something that you think is bullshit, you have no idea who you are. If you find yourself listening to something that you totally feel is bullshit and da da da, but you still listening, like you're still listening, you have no idea who you are. And more than likely, at a soul level, you probably fuck around and resonate, but you're so heavily programmed that your intellect is clashing with your soul level resonance, and you're at conflict, and you're essentially at war with yourself, but you externalize that, come at war with the person that you're watching on whatever video, which is also counterproductive. So, density. Density is how people, incarnates, are colonized. Colonization cannot really happen to a light being, a being that is light, a being that is vibrating or elevated or at a much higher frequency. Colonization doesn't happen at those levels. So if you're still arguing about the colonizer, you're still very dense. If the colonizer still affects you, you're still very dense. If you're protesting, you're probably still very dense. Your mind is still colonized, so it doesn't really matter what happens in your tangible reality or how many people disprove the thing that you're fist pumping about. You're very dense, and you only identify with your density. You can't delve outside of that until something profound happens, or until you act out and live out these reoccurrent cyclic life themes that you have to really get out of your system until you can have space to experience and accept any other truth other than the density that you've always known. So at the same time, honor the people that are fist pumping, because they're getting some residue out of their system that they might fuck around and have to get out of their system. But then this is also the delicate line between being programmed and being a follower, and getting out your karmic residues that must be glided with discernment. 1 second, guys. Mom life. Okay. So, like I was saying, sorry guys, titty fest out here. So yeah, while you're still dense, you will experience a lot of suffering, a lot of feeling like you're not in control of your world, a lot not in control of your reality, not in control of the things that happen to you. And like I said, there's a thin line that you must glide between acting out karmic residues so that you can get it out of your energetic field, out of your system, just fully release them and bring the cycle to an end. And having some program, some propaganda, some trigger you when you already didn't resonate with the message originally, but you were sucked in because there's a emotional significance, and you chose to just follow the grain and be distracted. You know, it's very tricky to glide this line. I'm not going to lie, because some of you have to act these reoccurrent triggers out in order to release it. And then some of you were not even on that this whole time. You weren't on it. You were doing something totally different. And then because you don't know who you are, you get sucked into mind control. You get sucked into propaganda. You get sucked into what the sheeple are doing, what the masses are doing. And you just get sucked into that because you're being herded, you know? And before that, if you weren't being herded and you were going against the grain and then you blinked and then you're fist pumping when you weren't even off that just before, you likely are just being triggered because there's an emotional resonance that is still there and can still be used as a tool to herd you in one specific direction, or herd your life force, or herd your overall energy. So now when you're dense, you can be colonized, like I said. And when you're colonized, that makes you 100% susceptible to spell work, mind control, curses, if you will. Now, there are a couple of things that are used to colonize incarnates that are so dense that they're only limited to third dimension. That's biochemical warfare. This is the GMO foods, the chemicals in the foods, the hormones in the foods, This is just all purely manipulation of the vessel, you know. And when you only identify with the body and your only sense of identity is your body, your skin color, physicality, you can be colonized at any point, you know. So like I said, through the quality of the water, with the fluoride, the chemicals, the hormones in your food, torturing animals, killing them brutally, and then eating it, it putrefying, that causing even more density in your body. Epigenetics, changing your DNA, and this is a very big one because a lot of us incarnate knowing exactly who we are, and then the moment that we know exactly who we are, there's a reprogramming that happens in the school systems, in the church, in the household. Boy, stay on my shirt. There's a reprogramming that happens, and that changes. In addition to epigenetics, that changes our DNA. And then we realize that something's terribly wrong, and we're trying to meditate. And we're like, I can't meditate. I'm in my room trying to meditate to this meditation video, and I just can't. It's not working. And it's because your DNA is not active right now, and you have to go back out in nature and plant your feet and get sunlight and get access to pure natural resources that will pretty much repair your DNA without you having to do very much. And this is where I believe it or not, where I get most of my information from. I don't study anything anymore. I'm not going to say I never did. Years ago I did because I wasn't active. So I was trying to scrape up the remnants of what I did know about myself, my raw, true, authentic self. And I was going through books and not really videos too much. I'm a bookworm. So I was going through books to find something that actually resonated with me enough. And then when I found something that had that spark that resonated, I went down a rabbit hole with it. And it was before I had my son that I started realizing that and debating and screaming and hooping and hollering about something that that's why I'm still screaming because I'm not activated. I'm not tapping into these light codes. I'm not getting downloads from the sun. I'm not getting downloads from the earth. I'm not inheriting my birthrights because I'm stuck on book smarts and intellectual smarts and reiterating and regurgitating information from somebody else's experience. And I'm scared to experience life. I'm scared to get my own raw, authentic wisdom from experience alone because security, the lack of emotional and creative and subconscious intelligence, compromised freedom, all of those things that I listed earlier, you know? So, and when your DNA is changed through schools, food, music, water, all these different things that manipulate your subconscious, which directly affects your DNA, there goes your identity furthermore, you know? So it's like once you become dense and you're able to be colonized, you can get attacked really from all angles. Not attacked because you're just this thing that must be attacked. It's just kind of a part of the third dimension, you know, that kind of density. And when we begin to forget our identity or whatever kind of karmic theme comes with our incarnation, our experiences kind of follow suit. And another thing, which is where I kind of come in, my role in this whole process is harboring trauma, which is where shadow work comes in. And when you harbor trauma, you basically enslave yourself to the energetic residues, the cyclic karmic patterns, all that other stuff. You enslave yourself to it and you recreate it over and over and over again. And ladies and gentlemen, that's hell. The hell that they told you guys that you were going to endure if you didn't do right. What it really meant was that if you didn't live a righteous life, which was a harmonious life, which is a life in sync with life itself and nature and harmony and honoring everything that's living and breathing, that's the right that they're talking about. They're not talking about not cursing and not drinking and not all that other dense shit. No, they're talking about living a righteous life. If you don't live a righteous life that's in sync with nature, in sync with life, you're more than likely living a disharmonious life, which one that likely almost forces you or influences you to harbor your trauma. And because our subconscious minds create our realities, and you're harboring this trauma in your subconscious because the programs basically perpetuate that you should indirectly, you have all of this residue, this sludge, this fucked up thing that's on loop until you so decide to break it. And breaking that loop is complicated because everywhere that you go, you're being triggered. You know, you watch the news, trigger. You go outside, trigger. You go to work, triggered. Now that they know everybody, it has a trauma loop on, and oh, everybody's fucking traumatized. We can throw anything out there. We done program them to tell them that they're this color, which means they're this, and they're black, they're minority, they're this, they're that. So literally, they don't know who the fuck they are because we told them who they were. So we can put out any goddamn thing, and it's gonna trigger them because they don't know who they are, right? So this is how everyone has landed themselves exactly where they are. You don't know who you are, and your sense of identity you think you're going to find through studies and degrees and success and money and ancestry, which is probably just helping them to further learn how to manipulate your DNA, because your DNA gets upgraded. So when you send them samples of your DNA, that's not the same spit, or it doesn't have the same molecular makeup as maybe your spit from 2001. So then they study that, and it helps them with their fucking progress. But I digress. So yeah, those are the problems with the community that I've noticed the most that need to be fixed. And like I've said over and over and over again, I don't think anybody's really taking it that seriously, but reconnecting to nature is a large part of it. And so is shadow work and dealing with your traumas and dealing with the things that scare you. Come, baby, what's the matter? And only you know how to do that. A part of reclaiming your identity is not saying, I'm going to go and change my nationality and I'm going to go get this card and put a fucking fez on my head and now I'm sovereign. Hell no. That's not sovereignty. That's sovereignty as in I'm still going to have to answer to this corporation. So I'm going to try to reclaim it under their, little dense thing. That's not sovereignty, so don't be fooled by that. There's a lot of truth in their studies, yes, but the whole process of sovereignty requires far more than that. I left the States because I'm heavily empathetic, and the gifts that I have and the way that I channel them and share them are way more conducive to being in a highly lush environment, if you will. If I can't walk outside and lay out in the grass, or if the grass is so covered in chemicals that is affecting my skin, or if the sun is damn near being blocked out and is not as full, being projected at its full spectrum, I don't thrive like I know I can. I'm not saying that I can't thrive, but once you come out to something like this, you can't go back to something like that. Unexperienced it, I'll never forget how this feels and how it makes such a difference, even in my body, the way that I feel, the way that my skin is. I can't deny that. If it were equal, I wouldn't even really be like that because it'd be the same, but it's not the same experience for me. So just stretch my nipple out. Just, forget my nipple. I don't want to have nice nipples. So one more thing that I wanted to say before I go into a download that I got today was, when it comes to your DNA, and reactivating it, it's not this complex of a thing that most people are trying to turn it into and try to charge you thousands of dollars for. The thing is, reclaiming your sovereignty is about saying fuck it. It can be your job, your relationship. I'm literally talking to a guy that quit his job. Another woman I've been talking to for a long time, she quit her job today. Everybody's quitting and they don't know what's next. And when we start to talk about food and density, we're not saying go plant-based because we just want to be cult. We're saying go plant-based so that your body's less dense, so that you can manifest opportunities beyond the density that's limited to the money game and the credit game and the da-da-da game. Your gut controls all of that. When you eat a heavy, dense, nasty-ass, greasy-ass meal that tastes great and overstimulates you but fucks up your manifestation engine, that shit fucks up how you perceive things, how fluidly you manifest things, how fluidly you navigate through life, your perceptual lens. It fucks up a lot of different things. And so when we say meditate, we're saying that so that you can master your mind, become aware of the things that are, influencing your subconscious. the things that are floating around in your conscious mind that are directly influencing your unconscious. When we're saying do yoga, we're saying become more in touch with your body, being more in tune with your body. I'm getting fucked up by mosquitoes. Becoming more in tune with your body, becoming more self-aware of little things, because half of us, we're in a lot of pain. Like, we have a lot of physical pain and we don't feel it because we're completely disassociated. And practices like yoga help you to associate with your vessel. What else? Breath work. Breath work is huge. You're talking about the key to manifestation. Breath work is the source of life, the source of inspiration. Sharu, hello. Sir, you can't twirl my nipple this whole video. Breath work is actually huge. It goes right alongside of diet. And that's why I said it was very interesting on one of my old lives that your respiratory tract and your digestive tract are directly correlated. But I'll go into that another time. I try to refrain from getting into the science and the facts on facts on facts on facts, because I was there and it really didn't do anything for me. It didn't activate anybody. You know, I find it far more efficient when I speak from the light codes and the downloads that I get from just being out here in the sun. I find it far more effective than to just be spitting facts from y'all that I read in a magazine or a book or a video or a movie or whatever, right? Because those aren't my raw, authentic experiences. So the light codes, the resonance doesn't translate. It might hit you intellectually, but it's not going to hit the same. Another thing that I thought about, and this is the download that I was speaking of. As children, right? And this was something that was drilled into my head when I was sitting in the sun today. Through the sun, I'm almost convinced completely, because this ain't some shit that I just think of or even heard anywhere. But everybody's talking about time is an illusion, right? And everybody's talking about the new earth, the new earth. We're entering the new earth. Those people kind of still are trapped in the linearity of time, right? And they keep talking about this new earth, this new earth, this new earth, this new earth. We're entering the new earth. We're leaving the old earth, da 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 da. Unbeknownst to most of us, when we were born, we were in the new earth. Think about it. When you're young and you're blissed out and everything looks fuzzy, like a damn dream. Do any of you guys remember your childhood? Do you remember that aspect of your childhood? Because I do. I remember this sun being the only thing really in all of existence, and everything else kind of being fuzzy and blurry. It was like a freaking dream. And I was only taken out of it to pay attention to where I'm walking, or pay attention to the lesson, or pay attention to the teacher, you know? And with enough paying of attention, I eventually anchored inside of this body and densified myself, along with the food and the whatever else was being used to further colonize me through my parents and through whatever systematic programming. But before that, I was on the new earth. And we literally take our kids out of that shit. In your ways, I barely I'm sorry guys, my Wi-Fi did some weird things. I'm gonna end the room because I don't want you guys to miss this message. But when I was a kid, I was on the new earth, you know, and sometimes I too sink back into that linear spell of time where I'm like, oh, we've been born into this dense earth, and then, you know, we got to go back. We elevate into the new earth. Like, that shit's been there this whole time because it's governed by frequency. Our frequency is densified. We descend in consciousness, and then we spend our whole adult lives, if even, it's not even all of us, some of us spend our whole adult lives trying to find the feeling of the new earth, the feeling you get on weed, the bliss that you might feel on shrooms. That's all new earth frequency that you're getting tidbits of. And I'm going to get on Instagram Live after this to talk about that. But we're getting tidbits of the new earth in all of these micro experiences. And we all seem to think that, you know, I think consciousness is elevating, and it's more common for all of us to tap into the new earth frequency. But we've been there. We've been tapped into that since we were children. And that's why I'm not even my son doesn't speak yet. I'm not hell-bent on teaching him English, to be real with you. I'm not hell-bent on putting him into any school system. I'm not hell-bent on densifying him at all. And if you know the more denser colonized folk that feel like that has something to do with his intelligence, have something to say, that says more about how much they don't know who they are than it does my child. He probably remembers exactly who he is. He speaks goddamn light language. The language that he does speak, the gibberish that they think is uncivil or whatever the hell else, that shit is light language. Kids speak that shit fluently, and then we teach them this densified, bastardized shit that reflects their whole manifestation engine, what they see reality as, how they see reality, you know, making them pay attention, forcing them to study, forcing them to learn this thing, to uphold something that doesn't even nurture and feed us at a soul level. Why would we do that? You know? Reading your comments. Aw, that's confirmation. I am a shaman. I don't say that too much because there are a lot of people capitalizing off of shamans and perpetuating that they're shamans because they can do ayahuasca or take ayahuasca or, you know, and I remember I had a friend that said, you know, I think you're a shaman by birthright. Which moon were you born on? And I found out that most shamans are born on a waxing gibbous. And I was born on a waxing gibbous. And my connection with the planet and the downloads that I get and the messages that I get, they've been so seamless for so long. Before I even woke up, people were calling me Earth Mother. When I did acid, I looked around at the elderly, at young people, at old people, and I cried because I felt like I was their mother and I abandoned them. You know, white people, black people, old, young, middle-aged. I saw them all on the street while I was on acid and just cried for 3 hours straight. You guys can ask my son's father. I cried for 3 hours straight, and I was thinking about my father, my brother, all of which are older than me. And I had this innate. So anybody that's a guardian of the earth or that's a shaman, you know the conviction and the guilt that came with the condition of this world and how us being on our job and us honoring everything that comes to us, it's a real job, you know, because this planet is our body. It's not separate, you know, and we're getting back into remembering that and realizing that it will be something that just is like it used to be, walking around barefoot, you know. I don't know if you're born on the full moon. I didn't delve into it. You know, I feel like when I start to delve into details, my ego starts to attach to some of the details, and then that's never good, never productive. So I refrain from digging into things and telling people what this means for them. Like, you ultimately decide what something means for you. Before I knew that I was a shaman by birthright, I was still doing shamanic work. I didn't have any label to it. I didn't call myself a shaman. And if you realize, I don't call myself a healer because there's so many healers calling themselves healers, and I just don't want to be bunched into that fad. Do I play any instruments? I play the. I'm in this, and I'm gonna go live on Instagram to finish this talk about the New Earth thing. I want to share the same thing with Instagram, but thank you guys for tuning in. I just wanted to give you guys some things that I've been thinking about because Zach and I are creating a virtual resource hub centered around laws. And laws stands for land. We're going to have resources that honor the harnessing and the nurturing and the protection of these things. And these things directly reflect our birthrights and our sovereignty and our authenticity and our identity even. Our capacity to nurture them and be aware of them and to be in tune with them directly affects our sovereignty, unbeknownst to us. So we're working on that virtual resource hub. I've been saying it's going to be done in 2 days, but I just do that to, you know, inspire myself to work on it or rush it, but I don't want to rush it. So whenever it's ready, it'll be ready. It's a subscription-based hub, so you would subscribe monthly, very cheap. I think like $5 a month or something. And we'll be getting like plant-based chefs, agriculturalists, immunologists, people that will help you understand the seed of your identity or your raw essence, if you will, and help you to harness that and cultivate that, because I know what I get from downloads, but I haven't mastered the art of every avenue of expression in terms of like the farmer, the herbalist, the midwife. You know, I haven't mastered all those realms, but I do think that I do a pretty superb job at attracting them and helping to give them a platform to remind you of who you are and what you are and what you're capable of. So be on the lookout for that. And I'm going to head to Instagram. See you boys later.